What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and you can only see my hands, which means it's time for another installment of Micro Brand Monday, and today we're going to be taking a look at a watch from Axios. We've taken a look at a couple of their watches before, but we're seeing something different today. I think it's supposed to be a field watch. Ooh, right up my alley. Let's take a look. It is 11:03 a.m. Let's get down to business. Okay guys, so Axios, I've mentioned this I think on the first review that we did of them. They were started by one of the people at Zelos, so there's a relationship there for sure. What I've noticed though is Axios has a little bit of a more, I will say, tame design language. Zelos is very big and bold and like built like a tank. Like, remember that Zelos Abyss 2 that I reviewed at the beginning of my channel? Whereas Axios, we took a look at that Axios flagship and it was much more of kind of like a vintage skin diver where, Zelos, they're all about the big beefy boys, which, different strokes for different folks. But here, according to the spec sheet they sent me, and this is just little foam padding, we're going to be taking a look at a vintage-inspired field watch. Now, people want me to mention the packaging. This is kind of some hard, textured card stock. Very fun, kind of accordion-like. And then, of course, because it is a micro brand, we are getting a leather watch roll. Let's get up close. Okay, and as always, I am very bad with colors, so someone in the comment section help me out here. It's not quite like a forest green. It's some form of green, I think, and then, brown. Undo this buckle. Now there's something here. Uh-oh, I didn't know they were sending me 2 watches. Whoa. It's like Christmas, guys. I'm just kidding, I don't know what Christmas is like because I'm Jewish. But I can pretend. All right, I'm very excited to introduce to you guys the Axios Pathfinder, and I actually didn't realize they were sending me 2 dial variants. Oh man, this black one looks great, but I'm a salmon boy. I love me some salmon. Look at that. Jeez, and for you freaks out there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. See, I teased you a little bit there. Let's go ahead. This one actually doesn't have that plastic. But yeah, so this is, I guess what they say, is a take on a 1940s field watch. And I can kind of see with, the flat brushed bezel and then the mirrored polished on the side. This almost reminds me of that WWW, if you remember, from Cerakoe. Although, of course, that Cerakoe has a little bit of different dial variants, of course. But just with the flat brush bezel and then mirrored polished on the side, I can definitely see, a vintage aesthetic there. Let's go ahead, we'll look at them one at a time. We'll talk about the price and the spec sheet, and then of course, we'll put it on the wrist, excuse me. So as we get up closer to the dial, we can see a nice textured pattern there. We can also see not a whole bunch of text. We're gonna focus in on all of these things specifically, but I just want you to kind of take a look at these applied indexes and the depth of the dial as I go over the price and spec sheet. So on Kickstarter, this is going to be released at $249 US. This is also a watch with a 200 meter water resistance rating. It's powered by the Seiko Instruments NH35 automatic movement. So of course that does have hacking and hand wind. We've seen a million of these. Let's see, 316L stainless steel case construction. It does have a threaded screw down case back and a threaded screw down crown. Of course, threaded and screw down both mean the same thing. It is a fixed bezel, so of course there is nothing to actuate there. And a flat sapphire crystal with inner anti-reflective coating with C3X1 Lume. And we're gonna test just how vibrantly that glows in a moment. But let's go ahead, we'll pan out a little bit and talk about the size. Okay, so before we put it on the wrist, here are the dimensions. We're getting a 39mm case diameter, a 47mm lug to lug, and a 12.3mm case thickness, and has a 20mm lug width. So there's a lot of options there if you don't want to wear this baby on the bracelet. Let's go ahead and put it on the wrist. And since it's going on the wrist, we can take a moment and talk about the bracelet and clasp. You know, these bracelets here with these staggered links, they tend to be hair pullers. We won't know until we put it on the wrist though. Pretty standard clasp. We see some added retention there, the clasp stay as we call it. There is some protective plastic there. Yeah, rattles a little bit, but the bracelet does feel, the bracelet does feel of pretty sound construction. We can see not a whole lot of slack there, but pretty standard clasp. Okay, let's put it on the wrist. Hopefully most of my hair will remain, but you know, we'll see. Here it is. Got to throw up those dimensions again. So for reference, guys, I have a 7.5-inch wrist, and we can see these lugs are not encompassing the entirety of my wrist. And in my opinion, that's how most watches should wear. I mean, I understand people have different preferences on how they want their watch to look on their wrist, but I think that, you know, the lugs should not encompass, or at least they shouldn't hang over the sides of your wrist. So I think this is a pretty versatile sizing. I think when people see watches under 40mm, they freak out because they're like, oh, it's tiny. It's really not, okay? I have a 7.5-inch wrist again, and people laugh when I mention my wrist size as if I'm bragging. Guys, this is a wristwatch channel, and that's like a pretty pertinent measurement, so I tell people just to give you some reference to see how it might look on your wrist. But anyway, 7.5 inches is a bit above average, not to brag, but it's not like ginormous. There's a lot of viewers that have like 8 and 8.5-inch wrists, and that's just incredibly impressive. So I think if you have a 7.5-inch wrist or a little bit bigger, this watch could still wear very well on your wrist. And if you have wrists smaller than 7.5 inches, this watch will still wear just fine. Now we've been looking at that black dial a little bit, so let's give this salmon dial some love. We can see some very nice contrast with those applied indexes and this kind of textured pattern on the dial, or textured finish, I should say. And one thing that's going to be a plus or a minus, depending on how you feel about this, would be the faux patina, okay? Some people really enjoy the faux patination because, you know, it looks like the watch is a bit weathered, and some people absolutely hate it because they think it's like phony, and why make these indexes look old if it's not actually an old watch? I think it looks really cool. I tend to like it. Now, I hope it still glows because, let's be honest, these indexes are big and bold. The handset looks to have a decent amount of lume on it. So regardless of it having faux patination or faux patina, I hope that it still glows nice and vibrantly. Let's take a look at the logo. Honestly, knocked it out the park here. Regardless of how you feel about the logo's design itself, I think it was very, very smart just to have the logo and not have Axios written out as well. Again, I think it should be one or the other with most of these micro brands. I think some of them try to do a bit too much when it comes to the logo and signage and font. Axios did a great job. Just this little kind of triangle A for Axios, that little stylized logo. No extra font except for where it says Pathfinder. Oh, I tricked you guys, right? A little bit of movie magic. We went back to the black dial. Yeah, so again, it's not a whole paragraph of text. I think it was smart less is more, guys, with watches, as far as I'm concerned. Again, I know different people have different preferences, but with this black dial variant, I think the contrast, especially how it's playing with the light, very, very tasteful. We can see over by the 8 o'clock index and hovering over by that 9 o'clock index and that minute hand, the borders of those Arabics are just picking up the light very, very nicely and popping. Similarly, with that 4 o'clock index in this light, it is picking up that glow just very nice, and it's popping off that black dial. Very smart to utilize applied indexes. It gives it a little bit more of a juxtaposition with that textured finish. So again, you have that sharp, sleek smoothness of these applied Arabics, and then we have that kind of rough, weathered, textured finish below it. Looks very, very nice. Okie dokie, it's time to inspect this case back. Now you'll notice there is no display window, but there is a beautiful interpretation, depiction, rendition, however you want to say it. There's a beautiful mythological Pegasus with a nice mirrored, polished finish kind of popping off that case back. It says Axios Pathfinder NH35, referring to that movement, of course. Then it says 000, which this is a pre-production prototype. But then what I want you to focus on is actually here. It says, and how can man die better? And I believe that's taken from Lays of Ancient Rome. And the full quote is, and how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? Very meaningful, powerful quote there. Again, I believe they were taking that from the Lays of Ancient Rome. But yeah, very, very nice detail without being too much. It's not like a huge mural on the back. It's just a nice little detailed Pegasus there that you can look at every once in a while. I know some people really do prefer display case backs, but for me personally, especially with the amount of times we've seen NH35 movements, I feel like I don't really need to see another one right now. I'd rather take a look at a mirrored, polished Pegasus. So it's about that time. We got to go ahead and check the crown setting and function. This crown does thread, so we have unthreaded it. Let's go ahead and thread it back in. Very nice and smooth, actually, not really gritty at all. Now, here's the thing. This is going to be another potential turnoff for some people. You know the NH35 does have a date complication. This dial does not accommodate it, so we have to refer to this as a ghosted date. So there will be two crown settings, and actually, there's two very distinct crown settings, but we only need the final position to set the time. So we'll go ahead and move the handset around. Yep, no weird, awkward clicks or anything. Everything's nice and smooth the way it should be. We can go ahead and pop that crown back in, and it threads up nicely. We can see under 13 millimeters thick. There is a signed crown, and there's some nice serrations there without being too much. Now, I know all of us are washing our hands a ton right now, so our hands are quite dry. At least mine are pretty dry. So, of course, with me actuating a bunch of crowns, it looks like it's tearing my hand up, but it's not. It's actually pretty smooth, but enough to get a good grip. And we see that Axios A design there. But one thing, again, with these polished bezels, you are going to get some smudges there, which I've already given this watch my fingerprint evidence. All in all, this wears pretty nicely on the wrist, and again, that 39 millimeter case diameter is great. The one complaint I would have right now looking at this watch is I wish it had drilled lugs, because again, for a field watch, you want to have options here. You don't always want to wear it on the bracelet. Sometimes you want to put it on a NATO strap or a sailcloth strap, maybe even a silicone strap, because this does have that water resistance rating and that threaded crown. But, you know, doesn't mean it's impossible to change the straps. It's just a little less convenient than having some drilled lugs. So if it were up to me, I'd give them a little bit of advice and give this baby some holes. Now, we can see nice dual finishing all around. Brushed finish on most of the faces of the case, but on the edges we can see nice mirrored polish. Similarly here on the bracelet, we can see the center links are a bit more polished than the bordered links, although it's not like a mirrored polish. It's just they're a little bit more shiny than the bordered links. But again, these bracelets, I haven't spent enough time with it yet to tell you definitively, but these staggered link bracelets tend to yank my hair. But it does look nice with this watch for sure. Looks very nice. And this watch really does play with the light beautifully. Oh yeah, baby. It is time for Lume. Dude, this is glowing pretty well. Look at that. Only gave it a little jolt. And it is glowing vibrantly. Let's pull out a bit and take a look at the black dial. All right, we can see it is not glowing at all right now, but a little zap. Dude, this has great lume on both dial variants. So there's some definite consistency there. Yep, love to see it, guys. Some actual decent lume on one of these microbrand watches. You know, not every watch that comes in from Microbrand Monday has like nearly as good lume. So this isn't like the absolute best, but it's definitely one of the better ones. So good job, Axios. Okay guys, so now that we spent an afternoon with these Axios Pathfinder field watches, what do I think? Well, again, I can only review, or I can only speak for the watches I've reviewed here today, but so far, for just under $300 US, it's incredibly impressive for the amount of finishing that you receive. Again, the NH35 automatic movement, although it's absolutely a workhorse movement, it's not the most impressive as far as complications go. I mean, this watch only accommodates hacking and hand wind. It doesn't even utilize the date complication that the movement has. So you're not getting the most complicated watch, but what they nail is simplicity and finishing. Okay, because again, when something is simple, it has to be executed immaculately. And from what I see here, and we have two samples, everything is sleek and smooth and sharp where it's supposed to be. We see some mirrored polish, we see some brushed finishing. It looks very, very nice, and there's no weird burrs or tool marks or sediment that I can see with these watches here. Maybe on playback we'll notice something, but so far everything looks really, really sleek and smooth and clean. Again, I think I'm more partial to the salmon dial because I have I don't know, might be a fetish at this point, but I really love salmon dial watches. But if you want something a bit more classically field watchy, then yeah, probably the black dial would be your thing. Now for the Kickstarter price of just under $300 US, for an automatic watch, again, a workhorse movement, a threaded crown, 100 meter water resistance rating, inner anti-reflective coating on a sapphire crystal, and some really superb finishing, I think that this is a definite contender in that kind of entry-level price range. Now, people have different spending habits, people have different spending abilities, I understand that, but again, for under $300, I think this is very, very affordable for what you receive. But guys, please, in the comment section, let me know what you think. So guys, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me on this installment of Microbrand Monday. I want to thank Axios for sending me these watches to review and sponsoring this episode, because we can't do this content without the support from other businesses. So we thank them, and it really does take guts for them to send me these watches and have me get real up close with my various lenses. So thank you to them, and thank you to the viewers. Guys, what's a channel without a viewer? I really do appreciate you hanging out with me here today. Hope you're enjoying the content. If you are, please hit that like button. It really does help the channel out a bunch. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, but it sounds like a lot of you have, because my channel is really growing, all thanks to you. We're around 158,000 subscribers, which is just insanity. Never would I have ever imagined being here, guys. You've seriously made my dreams come true. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to my channel members who really have gone above and beyond. It's like YouTube's Patreon. They've hit that join button next to that subscribe button, and every month they're really making it happen. They're giving me the ability to film here literally every day. So guys, you freaking rock. Again, it's like $4.99 a month. You get some extra content there and access to that members only Discord chat. So guys, thank you so much. Again, you freaking rock. I will see you on the next one. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time, I just tell it.